Have you ever been hurt so badly that you stopped talking? Not because you had nothing to say, not because you didn't care, but because somehow silence felt safer than words. Maybe someone betrayed you. Maybe someone disappointed you. Maybe they looked you in the eye and said something you'll never forget. And suddenly, the version of you that laughed loudly, explained everything, and wore your heart on your sleeve went quiet. Completely quiet. People call it coldness. Others call it avoidance. Some even call it immaturity. But psychology has a very different explanation, because hidden inside that silence is a mystery most people never stop to investigate. Why do some people become quieter when they're hurting the most? And what is the mind actually trying to protect? Welcome back to Mind Unraveled. Case file number 006. The psychology behind why you go quiet when you're hurt. Let's investigate. You know that person who goes completely quiet when something hurts them? The one who says, "I'm fine," but secretly means, "Please don't ask me to explain something I don't even understand yet." Yeah, that person isn't being cold, and they're definitely not broken. In fact, there's a lot more happening beneath that silence than most people realize. If you're someone who shuts down instead of speaking up, you're about to see yourself in a way you've probably never seen before. Because today, we're investigating the psychology of people who go quiet when they're hurt. The people society calls distant, closed off, emotionally unavailable. But science calls something else entirely. And here's the first thing nobody ever tells you. That silence isn't a flaw. It isn't emotional weakness. And it definitely isn't proof that you don't care. According to psychology, what your brain does when you're hurting may be one of the most complicated emotional responses the human nervous system can produce. And the fact that nobody ever explained it to you doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It might actually mean the opposite. Most people simply don't have the language for it yet. Stay with me. Because by the end of this investigation, you're going to understand yourself in a way you never have before. Let's start with the thing almost everyone gets wrong about you. When you go quiet, people assume you made a decision. Like you sat down, thought carefully, and decided, "I'm just going to shut everyone out." Like it's calculated. Like it's a strategy. Like it's some kind of power move. But that's not what it feels like inside your head, is it? When you're hurt, something changes. Not dramatically, not all at once. It's more like a quiet closing. Words become harder to reach. Your chest feels heavier. And the idea of opening your mouth and explaining emotions that you haven't even processed yourself suddenly feels impossible. And that's because something very real is happening inside your body. For decades, psychologists have studied what emotional pain actually does to the brain. And what they discovered is fascinating. Most people know about fight or flight. When danger appears, your body prepares to attack or escape. But there's a third response that people rarely talk about: freeze. The moment your nervous system decides that neither fighting nor running will protect you, it does something else. It slows everything down. It pulls the emergency brake. And emotional pain can trigger that response just as powerfully as physical danger. Think about that for a second. The next time someone says, "Why won't you just talk to me?" they're assuming that silence is a choice. But what if silence isn't a choice at all? What if, in that moment, your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do? Protecting you. Researchers have even found that during intense emotional distress, the parts of the brain responsible for language become less active. In other words, when someone stands in front of you saying, "Just tell me what's wrong," and you're standing there with absolutely nothing coming out, that isn't stubbornness. Your brain has literally made words harder to reach. Not because it's trying to hurt anyone, not because you're trying to punish anyone, but because in that moment, your mind has decided that survival is more important than conversation. You're not shutting people out. You're holding yourself together. And those are two very different things. But here's where the mystery gets even deeper, because this didn't start yesterday. You weren't born this way. No one is. Babies scream when they're uncomfortable. Toddlers cry in the middle of grocery stores without worrying whether anyone thinks they're being dramatic. Children express pain openly, loudly, without shame. Until one day, something teaches them not to. At some point, something taught you that expressing pain out loud wasn't safe. Maybe it was a home where emotions were treated like inconveniences, where you cried and got told, "Stop being so sensitive." Maybe you trusted someone with your feelings, only to watch them laugh at them, minimize them, use them against you later. Maybe you finally found the courage to say, "I'm hurting." And instead of being comforted, you were criticized, ignored, or made to feel like your pain was somehow the problem. So you adapted. You got quieter. Not because you stopped feeling, but because feeling out loud kept costing you something, and your brain remembered. Psychologists have spent decades studying attachment, the invisible blueprint that shapes how we handle emotional pain. Again and again, they discovered the same thing. The way we learn to survive emotional pain comes directly from our earliest relationships. If vulnerability led to safety, we learn to open up. If vulnerability led to rejection, humiliation, or abandonment, we learn to hide. And the terrifying part is that the nervous system never forgets, even years later, even with completely different people, even when the danger is gone. Your body still remembers the lesson. And every time something hurts, it quietly pulls that lesson back out. Stay quiet. Protect yourself. Don't let them see too much. Your silence isn't a personality flaw. It's a survival skill that your younger self built to protect you. And for a very long time, it worked. It got you here. But here's where things become even more interesting. Because while everyone else sees silence, your mind is anything but silent. In fact, it may be louder than ever. While the people around you think you've stopped thinking, your brain is doing the exact opposite. You're replaying conversations, analyzing expressions, questioning your own actions, thinking about what happened, thinking about what you should have said, thinking about what you'll say tomorrow. Inside your mind, the investigation has already begun. Questions start appearing one after another. Did I do something wrong? Have I felt this before? What exactly hurt me so much? Am I overreacting? If I speak right now, will I make everything worse? People assume silence means avoidance. But sometimes silence is actually overprocessing. Because for you, speaking before you understand exactly how you feel carries a risk. What if you say something you'll regret? What if your emotions distort the truth? What if your pain turns into damage? So you wait. You think. You replay everything. Most people see still water and assume nothing is happening beneath the surface, but you know better than anyone that still water often runs the deepest. And here's something about you that very few people understand. Part of your silence isn't just protecting you, it's protecting the people you love. Be honest with yourself. You already know this is true. You know what lives beneath your silence when the pain is fresh. You know the anger, the sadness, the disappointment. You know that if you opened your mouth too early, what came out wouldn't be a conversation. It would be an explosion. And maybe that's why you stay quiet. Not because you don't care, but because you care so much that you'd rather carry the pain yourself than accidentally destroy something important in a moment of emotional chaos. Psychologists call this the window of tolerance. It's the emotional space where healthy communication is actually possible. Outside that window, when emotions become overwhelming, no real conversation can happen. Nobody listens clearly. Nobody thinks clearly. Nobody speaks clearly. And without ever learning the term, you've understood this your entire life. You wait because you're trying to return to that window. You wait because you don't want pain to become destruction. You wait because you want the conversation to mean something. But here's the painful irony. The one thing that would help you open up is almost always the one thing people refuse to give you: patience. Instead, they push. They follow you from room to room. They say, "Just talk to me." "Why are you shutting me out?" "You're making this worse." And every single time that happens, it reinforces something you've secretly feared your entire life: that your way of processing emotions is somehow wrong, that your pain is only acceptable if it's immediate, verbal, and available on someone else's schedule. But what you actually need is something much harder to ask for. You need someone who can sit beside your silence without being threatened by it. Someone who doesn't turn your stillness into a personal attack. Someone who trusts that you'll come back when you're ready. Because the truth is, you're not asking people to read your mind. You're asking them to trust your process, to believe that silence isn't abandonment. It's simply how you find your way back to yourself. And here's the most important thing to remember. You are not cold. You are not manipulative. You are not broken. You are someone who feels things deeply. Someone who takes the time to understand pain before speaking it out loud. And in a world that rewards the loudest reaction, your quiet way of carrying pain will always be misunderstood by the wrong people. But the right people, they'll learn. They'll learn that your silence isn't distance, it's reflection, it's protection, it's love trying not to become destruction. And maybe one day, not today, maybe not even soon, you'll find it easier to let someone in before you've solved everything in your own mind. Not because your silence was wrong, but because you finally found someone who makes speaking feel safe. And that isn't weakness. That isn't failure. That's healing. Welcome back to yourself. This has been Mind Unraveled, Case File. Number 006, The Psychology Behind Why You Go Quiet. When Your Hurt is Now Closed. Until next time, stay curious. Question your thoughts. Look beneath the surface. Because sometimes the quietest people are fighting the loudest battles. And remember, every mind leaves clues. Like, subscribe, and join us in investigating the very next case. Thank you.